will be here throughout this 1 hour press briefing. We do already have with us the Honorable Favour Williams, our Minister of Education and Youth, and she will be updating the country on a number of matters. We also have to acknowledge her Permanent Secretary, one of the best in the business that we have. Dr. Kassan Troop is also here with her, and she also has some of her other members of her team here. We have the CEO is here, and I acknowledge her, and the other members of the Ministry of Education team. And so we're going to get some very important updates. We will also be having Minister Matthew Samuda, who will be updating on the drought and the efforts of the administration vis-a-vis getting water to the people of Jamaica, especially in Western Jamaica. And we will also have Minister Marlene Malahoo Fort speaking about the historic bill that was passed in the House yesterday. As always, before we start, I talk a little bit about what is happening across government, and as happened last week, I have to start with a sad one, which is the passing of Dr. Daniel Dawes, and we have to acknowledge it. Dr. Dawes was the CEO of the Universal Service Fund, and he committed his life to public service and improving the lives of Jamaicans. Under his leadership, the USF launched 320 community Wi-Fi hotspots and 29 public Wi-Fi hotspots. And these have been done across the length and breadth of Jamaica. And so we, as a government, and I know the Prime Minister had put out a statement, we definitely mourn his passing. The work that he did was absolutely phenomenal, especially with the community Wi-Fi's all over Jamaica. We saw many instances, and I've been to some of the launches, and I've heard people talk about how the Wi-Fi helped their children to be able to do their homework, to access the internet so that they can learn more about the world around them. We even had communities talk about how they're going to be doing community websites because they now have the Wi-Fi access. We had some persons who work with some of our food delivery places speak to how the community Wi-Fi hotspots help them in order to get business. So they need to have internet all the time, and in order for them to get the bookings for their deliveries, they use the community Wi-Fi hotspots. These have had tremendous impact on a lot of people across Jamaica, and Dr. Dawes worked tirelessly to have more and more of them out there. And so the Prime Minister and the wider administration send condolences to his family, his friends, and his colleagues. In terms of other items that I want to point out this morning, again, the Jamaican economy is growing, and the latest data shows that the economy grew by a rate of 1.9%, which represents another consecutive quarter of economic growth. That takes us to 12 consecutive quarters of growth. And the administration remains committed to building a prosperous economy for all Jamaicans. This is not normal. We're not used to seeing that kind of economic data, and it is something that we have to applaud. In terms of, and I see that we've been joined by Minister Malahoo Fort. Good morning, and she will talk about one of the historic things that happened yesterday. We haven't seen it so much in the news this morning, but it is historic. When we change the words of enactment for our laws, all of our laws have this at the end, and it's very important that we do what we can in order to change some of the laws and to take us on that road to republic. The administration is doing what it can. It still remains open to the opposition joining us back at the table. We want to do constitutional reform in a consultative and in a joined-up type manner, and so we are very much open to the opposition coming back to the table and joining us as we take Jamaica towards a republic, and Minister Malahoo Fort will speak about that some more. In terms of the Rockfort mineral bath, that's another big one because I've seen so many people complain about not having access to Rockfort mineral bath. And I'm very happy, and you would have seen also during the past week the announcement that there has been a 25-year lease signed with Carib Cement to upgrade and reopen the Rockfort Mineral Bath in Kingston, which is wonderful. And this new mineral bath, the new and improved mineral bath, will join a growing catalog of recreational spaces such as the Harmony Beach Park in St. James, the upcoming Resilience Park in Portmore, and Fort Rocky's 24/7 entertainment zone in Port Royal. So we really look forward to having the Rockfort Mineral Bath back on stream for our Jamaicans to enjoy. Another thing to point out are the 3 new X-ray machines that have been commissioned at the Kingston Public Hospital. And those cost approximately $500 million. That's very expensive. They are able to do 3,000 images per month. That's 3,000 Jamaicans every single month that will now be able to have their x-rays and their imaging done. And the Bustamante Hospital for Children, the National Chest Hospital, and the Spanish Town Hospital will also be receiving digital x-ray machines. Again, this shows the administration's commitment to improving healthcare in Jamaica. And we are very serious, and that $500 million investment is a big investment, but it's an investment in the health of our people. In terms of social housing, the Honorable Prime Minister handed over 5 new social houses in Clarendon last week. And that takes us to over 200 houses that have been commissioned. And each of these houses doesn't benefit one person. It benefits at least 4 people. So it would be 800 persons who did not have adequate living facilities have been assisted under this program. And so we were very happy to see the handover, and I know how grateful those money that has been set aside for these young farmers. In addition to that, 25% of all new agro park lands will be reserved or assigned to women, youth, and persons with disabilities. And again, this is our administration saying that we're not leaving anyone behind. Everyone is going on that prosperity train that has already moved off the platform. And so we're moving forward with those initiatives, and there are so many more that I won't even go into them, but his speech was a very good one, and I think he really should come to post-cabinet to talk a bit more about all of the innovations and all of the wonderful work being done in the Ministry of Agriculture. I see that we've been joined by Minister Samuda, and he is working really hard on water issues. I didn't mention any of them here, but he is here to speak to you on some of the initiatives that he is undertaking to deal with the drought situation and the impact of the drought on water availability. Minister Samuda.
Thank you, colleague Minister Dixon. Allow me to acknowledge and greet other members of the Cabinet, Minister Williams, Minister Malahoo Fort, of course, senior members of both of your ministries, Senator Fitzhenley. It's indeed a pleasure to join you this morning briefly for some comments related to water in Western Jamaica specifically. I say briefly because immediately after this, I head to Hanover for stakeholder consultations related to the major investments as well as current actions being taken in the West announced by the Prime Minister just yesterday. We do think it important to recap and to highlight a few details that may not have come out yesterday because of the significance of this investment. And I think that's the first place that we should start. 24.8 billion Jamaican dollars is the investment that was announced by the Prime Minister yesterday. It is the intention to break ground and start actual work within the next 12 months. We want stakeholders to understand that what has been approved is what is called the pre-engineering phase, where some 32 million Jamaican dollars will be spent, and we expect that work to be complete in 4 to 6 weeks. There is a 4-week period that we will work with the Ministry of Finance to complete the legal steps that allow the Minister of Finance to take the resolutions necessary to add this project to what is called PSIP, the Public Sector Investment Program, and allow for the resolution for direct procurement under emergency circumstances. The pipe procurement, because of the size and nature of the pipes that are expected to be used on this project, will see, after that period with the Ministry of Finance, a 4-month delivery window. At that point, once the pipes are in Jamaica, we'll obviously start construction. Now, all things being equal, and in a perfect world, we would hope to start sometime towards November. We will obviously keep the press and citizens aware of all steps and of progress being made. This project needs to be understood for what it is. The pipes laid in these areas were laid in excess of 40 years ago. They are severely degraded in their current size, and even at the current size, they do not have the carrying capacity for the population growth that you've seen in Western Jamaica. But focusing first on the level of degradation that we've seen, an element that hasn't quite come out in the discussion is that the current sea level rise that we're experiencing in northwestern Jamaica is increasing the pace of degradation. Just last week, you had a major traffic pileup and indeed car accidents in proximity of in St. James, and that took water out for pretty much all of eastern St. James. And in fixing that line coming from Martha Brae, because you fix one section, the pressure builds up at another section. I believe right in the vicinity of Hyatt, you had another break the following day. Then the following day, very close to Half Moon, you had another break. Now, the international standard for line replacement would be 4 breaks in a year. We've had 4 breaks over the last 10 days. So there is no doubt of the emergency nature of this pipe work and its impact that it's having on citizens and business in Western Jamaica. Now, the other point that we want to make sure is understood is that what happens with Martha Brae affects what happens in West End Negril. And it's because the systems are interlinked and do support each other. So what we expect is that this line that will be changed from Martha Brae into the terminal reservoir in the center of Montego Bay will significantly increase, perhaps by approximately 5 million gallons daily, the inflows into the terminal reservoir. The second line announced as the second component of the Western Water Resilience Program will be the line from Great River that will carry water pretty much all the way into West End Negril. Now, what that will do is, with increasing the carrying capacity and the reliability of that line into St. James, the Great River system will be better able to supply Hanover all the way into Negril and into West End. So these 2 lines are major components of the Western Water Resilience Program that we're undertaking. But there are other elements that do not qualify for emergency procurement, but these, we believe, do. Those elements include significant upgrades that will come and will go through the public investment program as per normal, which include the upgrade of the Roaring River treatment plant, the upgrade of the Great River treatment plant, and of course, further upgrades to the ones done last year on the Martha Brae treatment plant. We also contemplate significant upgrades of storage right along the corridor, as well as major investments in non-revenue water. I think at that point, it is very important, just before I segue, just to remind persons that these 2 lines alone will cost $24.8 billion. And how does that relate to other public expenditure? That is in excess of the municipal roads that will be done under the SPARK program. So it is a massive investment in water resilience for the citizens of Western Jamaica, who we know have suffered over the last 5 or 6 years as the system has continued to degrade. But the NRW piece is the piece that citizens will see and feel virtually right now. We are in the middle of a public international tender for a partner to engage over the next 10 years on a national non-revenue water program. Now, non-revenue water, for those who are not familiar, refers to water that is leaked or stolen. Now, we have done a pilot project in Kingston and indeed in the soon-to-be parish of Portmore, and we have halved leaks in these two parishes. And that is something that we're proud of. That has been done over the last 8 years. So non-revenue water, for instance, in Kingston would have been upwards of 70% in 2015. It is now 37%. These investments are critical to water resilience. And that is some of the work that is actually taking place in Negril now. Firstly, as mentioned by the Prime Minister, but not covered in the stories that I've seen thus far on this issue, on the West End, there is a particular challenge. So even though with works that we have done, largely a lot of the impact has been reduced between Green Island and the roundabout in Negril, for those familiar with the geography, the West End impact is still extreme. And that is largely because 1.2 kilometers of pipeline had all but collapsed. I want to assure residents in the area that the work has actually started. Pipes were delivered on Monday, heavy equipment dispatched yesterday, and works commenced late yesterday evening and will pick up pace this morning. That work will take some 3 weeks. So areas such as Hilton Avenue and Red Ground in Negril will see significant improvement upon the completion of those works. As a side note, the Prime Minister would have announced that immediately as that work is complete, NWA will be resurfacing that area. It is particularly degraded, and citizens have indeed been reaching out to us, and we are aware. A contractor has been mobilized for that resurfacing and awaits the completion of the pipe work. But the core issue, ladies and gentlemen, is that the inflows to our system have been significantly reduced. We have had less than 50% inflows from the Negril watershed. That watershed supplies the Logwood system and supplies the Bulstrode system, which deals with areas like Sheffield and Little London. Less than 50%. Now, that impact has been extreme. And I want to assure residents that, as announced and as committed, we have installed the generator at the Logwood facility, so you no longer have the electricity disruptions causing supply interruptions. As committed, we have procured and are installing today the new pumps at the Bulstrode system to significantly increase reliability. As committed, we have started major repairs on 4 areas that have significant leaks. We expect that all of these works, when complete in the 3-week period, will increase the supplies to Negril by over 1.2 million gallons daily. So even as we prepare for major investments in that infrastructure, in the carrying capacity of the mains, I want to assure residents that the small and micro issues that can be addressed now are indeed being addressed now, and that we do hear their calls, we do share the concern, and we are making the investments to alleviate their pain and stress during this period. The other final point, or rather the final point I will make, is in relation to a hotline that the Prime Minister would have announced. Later today, the NWC will publish a hotline as well as an email address that will allow citizens, not just in Negril, but certainly because of the issues we've seen in Negril, to report issues related to trucking and to deal with any allegations of cronyism related to trucking. We are not prepared to have citizens be unfairly treated when the government spends hundreds of millions of dollars in this drought response. It is a trying time, but we continue to work with stakeholders to ensure that we reduce the impact of this climatic emergency. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Minister Samuda. I think there are some questions from the media for you. I do know you need to go to Hanover today to deal with some of these matters, and so we'll take some questions.
All right. Morning, ministers. We have one. We'll start with Mahiri.
Okay. Morning, Senator Samuda. Mahiri from Nationwide here. I understand there was a meeting with the NWC in St. Elizabeth, I believe either earlier this week or last week. And during that meeting with the community members, I did hear of some issues in Lacovia, specifically in St. Elizabeth. Have there been any detected water issues in the parish? And if so, what is being done to mitigate them?
not familiar with specific issues in Lacovia, but I will take your contact and get back to you on that. What I would say is just last week, myself and Minister Green, the Member of Parliament for Southwest, sent and commissioned $180 million of pipe work in the area of Fort George, and we expect to break ground on the new line that will run from, I believe it is Black River to Parity in about a month or so. So St. Elizabeth is getting significant investment, and that investment is not simply limited to potable water. I'd also direct you to his page where he gave some updates on the Pedro Plains irrigation system. Now, though not mind to speak about it, is a major investment in water security in southern St. Elizabeth, one that was announced by former Prime Minister Michael Manley in 1973, that this government will make a reality. Now, it's important to what I'm responsible for because it will rest several wells that have been used for agricultural purposes and return them to the NWC, and will have a transformational impact on water security in St. Elizabeth, north and south.
All right, thank you. And last question would be, a couple months ago, I remember there was an announcement that, especially for the western parishes, there would be an implementation to ensure that schools had better water resilience in the western end. How are those plans coming along?
So Rural Water is currently scoping the issues in this space. We'll make a separate presentation on that in terms of what the capital requirement will be. But the intention is to work with the Ministry of Education through the summer to implement significant increases in water storage and a few rainwater harvesting systems in areas that are not programmed for infrastructure upgrades over the next 2 years.
Thank you, Minister. I gather there may not be any more questions for you.
No problem.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you, Minister
Fantastic.
Samuda. All right, and next up we have the Honourable Favour Williams, our Minister of Education and Youth, and I also have to acknowledge in the room our newly minted Parliamentary Secretary, Senator Abka Fitzhenley, who joined us after we started. Minister Williams.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Allow me to begin by acknowledging my colleague ministers, Senator the Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, Minister Malahu Fort, Minister Samuda, and our Parliamentary Secretary. The team from the Ministry of Education and Youth, of course, including our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Kassan Troop, our Chief Education Officer, acting, and Executive Director at the Overseas Examinations Commission, Mr. Hector Stevenson. Let me acknowledge as well across Jamaica those students sitting the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC, Caribbean Vocational Qualifications, CVQ, and the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Exam, CAPE. And I could not acknowledge our little ones in grade 3 who are sitting the grade 3 diagnostic test today. And of course, their teachers and parents, members of the media, Jamaicans here and in the diaspora. Happy Wednesday and a good morning to all of you. I will begin with a matter that has brought much angst and somewhat confusion over the last week to many principals, teachers, students, and parents across the island. That is the matter of the discontinuance of CXC subjects, namely agricultural science, double award only, and industrial technology, mechanical engineering at CSEC level, and electrical and electronic engineering and technology, and green engineering at CAPE. That was announced before stakeholders were properly engaged. As you know, CXC, which is the Caribbean Examinations Council, has been around for some 52 years and is the institution that provides regional and internationally recognized secondary school leaving examinations relevant to the needs of the Caribbean region. I'm presenting all of this background because CXC was established by member countries of the Caribbean to serve member countries, and so decisions like the continuance of subjects ought to rightfully to be discussed with education ministers from these member countries prior to public announcements. Having registered the concerns of our principals and other concerned Jamaicans, in no uncertain terms, we will be meeting with CXC along with other regional education ministers. And this meeting is set for Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. to address concerns with respect to the discontinuance or suspension policy. CXC also indicated that it would like to address critical matters relating to the administration and the release of results for the May-June 2024 exams. I would like to note as well that across the Caribbean, other colleague education ministers are very concerned about this discontinuance decision, and as a body, we have decided to take the matter to the Council for Human and Social Development, a committee of the CARICOM, which seeks to promote and develop coordinated policies and programs. Against that backdrop, let me bring your attention to the slide on the screens before you. This information with regards to the subjects that were announced. I know the screen is it's tiny, you're probably not able to see, but it lays out for us the number of schools taking the subjects, the entries, the range of entries, and more importantly, the enrollment for each subject. I want to say to our principals and our students that the Ministry of Education and Youth understands the value of these subjects, especially in the light of the recent declaration of Jamaica as a STEM island by our Honorable Prime Minister. And at a meeting held with principals on May 21, it was unanimously agreed that these subjects should be continued. We will engage further with our principals to hear from them as to the support they will need. We will increase awareness of these subject areas under the STEM and TVET agendas and the value of the subjects to our national development and in advancing career opportunities. We will look also at increasing opportunities for career counseling for students to aid in their understanding of the potential for job opportunities in these areas. I want to assure Jamaicans that the Ministry of Education and Youth is fully in support of the continuance of these 4 subjects. We will report back to our principals and the wider Jamaican community of the meeting with CXC on June 4th and the meeting with the region's education ministers. We'll turn now to a topic of payment for marking of SBA's school-based assessment, and I will ask the Overseas Examination Commission to provide an update on this matter. We have with us today Mr. Hector Stevenson, the Executive Director of the OEC, but before he comes, let me thank our teachers for the effort that goes into marking SBAs. Many persons may not realize this, but the SBAs have been a part of the CXC examinations assessment structure from its first examination in 1979. And these SBAs provide opportunities for teachers to gather data on student performance over time. There are any number of modalities in which our students can present their SBAs, and it ranges from portfolio through journals, community projects, case studies, sporting activities, event planning, designing, and composing TVET subjects. SBAs, the importance of it is that it seeks to engage the students in an area of their interest. We thank our teachers for the long-established practice of marking these student-based assessment projects. And so I'd like to ask Mr. Stevenson just to give an update of where we are in terms of the payments for SBA marking.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Ministers, or PS, Chief Education Officers, members of the media. It's a pleasure to be here representing the OEC on this critical matter. And so, Minister, what I have to report this morning is that as of yesterday, we have paid all teachers in the system who have marked SBAs in 2022 and 2023. With respect to 2022, those are retroactive payments. So all schools have been paid. All schools that have made submissions have been paid, retroactive payments, and all schools that submitted information for 2023 have been paid. There are schools that have made submissions that we've had to return for corrections and so on. And as soon as they return to us, we will complete those payments. So good news, everybody has been paid who has made submission to the OEC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stevenson. Short, to the point. Thank you. Let me thank the OEC together with its predecessor. As you know, the OEC has been part of the educational landscape for over 135 years. In service to the government and people of Jamaica. The OEC is the proctoring or supervisory body for exams for secondary and tertiary level education. We thank them for maintaining the highest level of integrity in custody, distribution, and monitoring of the exam process. The OEC is an entity that stands tall in the educational sector. I'll move now just to recapping the end of term. Schools would have resumed on Monday after observing the midterm break. We have hit the last stretch running. And just to note, our early childhood institutions are working through the Jamaica School Readiness Assessment, JSRA, which is not a test, but a sort of developmental marker used to identify what 4-year-olds across the island can do and what they struggle with as a means towards understanding how their respective needs can be acknowledged, planned for, and met as they move through the education system. At the primary level, we are about to do the PEP4 assessments. Internal examinations are also set to begin at our primary schools and the secondary levels, while many of our secondary schools are finishing the administration of external exams. We look forward, along with parents and students, to the PEP6 results being shared later in June, and we have more trend teacher engagement sessions set to begin next week. All of what I have just said will take place before July 5th, which is the end of the 2023-24 academic year, 2023-24 academic year. As we approach graduation, which will soon be on everybody's minds, I just want to touch briefly there. Firstly, I wish to extend my very early heartfelt congratulations to all our students who have reached these significant milestones. Your hard work, perseverance, and dedication have brought you to this proud moment, and I join your families, teachers, and the wider community in celebrating your achievements. As everyone knows, graduations and school leaving ceremonies are pivotal events that mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another in the lives of our students. These ceremonies hold great sentimental value to us as Jamaicans, and it is important that they are memorable and inclusive for all who participate. In light of this, I'm calling on all school boards and administrators to be mindful of the cost that they ask parents to bear in order for their children to participate in graduation ceremonies. I know that many schools use external vendors to provide the gowns and caps, the photos, and other services. We ask that our principals negotiate as hard as they can with vendors, and to the vendors we say, consider the pockets of the parents. While this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the students, they will never graduate primary school or high school again. We do not want it to be a financial burden on families who may have more than one child graduating. To our vendors, we know you are in business, but you are also a stakeholder in education. Help our families. To our school administrators, we want all our students to experience graduation. Our goal is to celebrate every student's journey and accomplishments. We don't want graduation to be used to exclude. It is crucial that we are mindful of the financial constraints faced by many of our families and the difficulties and embarrassment it poses when students are not included in graduations. My advice is to make these celebrations as accessible to all as possible. Let us work together to create memorable, inclusive, and meaningful ceremonies that honor our students' achievements without placing undue financial strain on families. As we look forward to summer plans, we've already put plans in place to support our hardworking and committed teachers in terms of their continued professional development. And this morning I share some of the details of the Jamaica Teaching Council's matrix of professional development opportunities for the 2024-25 training cycle that is now available via the Council's website at jtc.gov.jm. The Summer 2024 matrix has been developed using appraisal, school inspection and supervision data, student performance data, and recommendations as per the Reform of Education in Jamaica 2021. Let me share that all professional development offerings by the JTC are free of cost to teachers. In-service teachers are invited to visit the JTC's website to review additional information on these activities and register for the professional development. On completion of these programs, teachers who participate will receive credits towards the subsequent professional appraisal, be able to use certificates attained towards opportunities for promotion or new assignments, be eligible for consideration for lead teachers, which are trainer of trainers. And then we'll go to our summer school. This year, the Ministry of Education and Youth will once again host summer school as an intervention for students who've been identified as in need of academic support. This will take the form of a summer camp, and activities will vary across 193 primary schools and 55 high schools in our 7 regions. All efforts will be geared towards supporting our students in literacy and numeracy. Summer school will be for 3 weeks from July 8th to the 26th for an hour and a half daily. Schools will be made aware of the summer camp structure, the plans for specific intervention to target students along with the students who have been identified for these summer camps. We crave your patience and ask that you look out for the relevant bulletins. Finally, in terms of supporting our students, as we continue to work with partners who enable us to provide activities and services to mitigate school violence, we're happy to share details of the Jamaica Conservation and Development Trust project designed to enrich the lives of 500 underserved youth. who attend schools within zones of special operations, and this has been made possible through a grant of US $25,000 from the US Embassy in Jamaica. This particular project, called Mountain Quest, is dedicated to empowering underserved communities by offering Jamaican youth the opportunities to connect with our island's natural heritage through immersive day camp experiences where they get to explore Hollywell Recreational Area in the Blue Mountains, guided by trained volunteers and camp counselors with a variety of structured activities and unstructured exploration that are considered soul refreshing and fostering well-being and educational growth. The involvement of guidance counselors and deans of discipline is instrumental in identifying and enrolling the students from the targeted schools. Feedback from participants underscores the project's transformative impact, with students expressing gratitude for the opportunity to be in touch with themselves and to reflect on their lives in the serenity of nature. This program started in March of this year and has delivered 5 camps already, impacting 250 campers from a number of our schools, including Haile Selassie High, Norman Manley High, St. Andrew Technical High, Denham Town High, Kingston High, Holy Trinity High, Denby High, Papine High, Tivoli Gardens High, Edward Seaga Primary, St. Albans Primary, St. Annie's Primary, Calabar Primary, Greenwich Primary, and Holy Family Primary. In closing, I want to unreservedly acknowledge and thank our school boards, our principals, teachers, administrative staff, and all who work at all levels of the education sector. It is a collective effort of all that will move this sector forward. Furthermore, I state categorically that our commitment remains to you, our students, our teachers, families, board members, auxiliary staff, and everyone who works at transforming our education sector for the good of our country. Together we are, together we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. There's a lot going on. That's very, very clear. I don't know. Are there any questions, Naomi, for Minister Williams?
Yes, good morning.
All right, so
once
you have
again,
to come
Minister.
back.
All right, we have a few, and especially online. Good morning to the IRFM team, and they have posed a question. Maisha, good morning. She's asking, there are reports, Minister, that some students are using AI, that's artificial intelligence, to plagiarize, and that's showing up in some of the SBAs. Now, some teachers have expressed concern about this. Is the ministry itself aware of this issue and what's being done about it?
All right, so that particular issue has not come to my attention. I understand, though, from a lecture I went to at UWI on artificial intelligence that every time you do a query of whatever artificial intelligence site you use, you get a unique answer, and that within the AI world, and maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this, but that there is no plagiarism. We can ask the professor who made that statement about AI, but suffice it to say, we want our students to have access to all the information that's out there. We'd love for them to make sure that they attribute whatever it is that they use within their exams, within whatever work they turn in. They should adequately ensure that they have, that they ensure that they indicate where that information is coming from, who's the author, make sure they use quotes if they're taking something from somebody else's work, and that is clearly footnoted in the work that they turn in. Maybe that professor at that time talking about AI was probably joking, so I don't want anybody to take it away that Minister Williams, Minister of Education, said there's no plagiarism. But I just want to encourage our students as they use the internet, as they use different sources of information, to ensure that they are careful about indicating where the source is from, who's the author, how much of the author's work they're using, and to clearly put it in quotations that if they're using the exact words from anything that is out there.
Thank you, Minister.
I'll just add something to the answer from the digital standpoint, Minister, not from really the education standpoint. Artificial intelligence is here; it's not going anywhere, and we have to understand how we can actually leverage it. And I love that question from the Area FM team, because it's a very valid question. Because when you look in your WhatsApp now, or you go on Instagram, you now see Meta incorporated into very much into the app. And so artificial intelligence, where you used to have to download ChatGPT or any other program, you no longer have to do that. It's right there for our children. And in Jamaica, we use WhatsApp so much, and so the technology, AI, is now very much at our fingertips, and that's what our students are using. And I do think it's good that they're looking at it, but they have to be very mindful of some of the issues. And one of them that I would point out, and that I always point out, is hallucination. And when you use AI, whether it's in Instagram or it's on WhatsApp, there is always a risk. And I'll give you one example. I went on to the Meta AI in Instagram, and also on WhatsApp, and I asked it, what's the most popular radio stations in Jamaica? And it gave me some radio stations that do not exist in Jamaica. It hallucinated. It made up an answer. And so our students have to understand that when they're using AI, this is very new technology, it is not always correct. So I would say stick to your known sources, and corroborate anything you get in relation to AI. The technology is new, it's brilliant, it's wonderful, but it also has its challenges. And as a policy, we have an AI task force that is looking at how, as a government and as a people, we can capitalize on AI while diminishing some of the negatives that are there in relation to AI.
Thank you so much, Minister.
As well,
Yes.
as part of the professional development coming up, the JTC is offering AI to teachers to improve their understanding of what this is. It's called Embracing AI, Artificial Intelligence for the Teacher. That is the real deal. And we implore our teachers to understand more about it, so that they and their students can engage in a fruitful way about artificial intelligence, its use, as we go forward, because I know that it's only going to expand more in our lives, and we need to understand. But again, I just want to reiterate in terms of papers that students turn in, to ensure that you correctly assign attribution to authors, their work that's out there that you may use in yours, and indicate clearly, do a lot of footnoting, again, as you turn in these papers.
All right, thank you, ministers. We now go to the floor. Come on.
Good morning, Kimon Francis from the Gleaner. Minister, are you aware of an incident in which a 6-year-old student diagnosed with ADHD was beaten at 2 public schools, one in Portmore and the other in St. Andrew? This has resulted in him being at home. The last incident occurred in January.
I know I have not seen a report on that. The CPFSA, which is our entity in charge of ensuring that they respond to any cases of abuse, children being out of school and so on, reports assiduously on the cases that come in front of them. They would send it to us at the ministry as well, and I have to say I have not seen that one, but I will take more details from you and follow up with the CPFSA and the schools and maybe even the parents as well to understand what's going on.
His mother is insisting that it was reported to you and Dr. True.
Well, as the minister says, they'll ensure that there are some investigations
yes,
there.
Yes, we will.
Thank you so much.
Okay, because an email may have come in or WhatsApp that we may have missed. You want to talk about it?
All right, Dr. True.
Good morning, ministers. Good morning, colleagues. I do recall the case, Minister. A particular evening, I think you facilitated the call with the parent, and we opened the call. It was a conference call, and we did speak to the mother. The child attended a school in Portmore, if I recall, and we did make contact with the principal. There was a different report coming out of the school environment. We offered support to the mother in terms of alternative placement, which she did obtain at another primary school. She did her own investigations because she was very concerned about the child being exposed to abuse, and so she had to be satisfied that the environment that we recommended was a safe environment. She felt comfortable and the child was accepted. So I'm not aware that the child is at home. The child should be in school. I'm also aware that she expended some costs with respect to medical expenses, and we have asked that those be submitted. I am in receipt of those receipts for her to be refunded. But that child is not at home, as far as I know.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Troop. All right, let's go to CVM.
Good morning, Minister. Ramon Gordon, CVM News. What's the status of STEM education locally? Should the CXC, after consultations, decide to discontinue those courses, will our students have access to other alternatives locally?
Okay. In terms of the 4 courses I mentioned earlier on, you're talking about, at the end of the day, it is the decision of the ministries across the region to determine if those courses are important, and we've indicated that they are important to our students here in Jamaica. And based on a WhatsApp group that I'm in with other education ministers across the region, they share the same sentiment and would like to see those courses continue. We recognize that there may be some additional cost to continuing those courses on the part of governments. But at the end of the day, the decision, I know, will be for the continuance of those courses.
All right. Thank you, Minister. Let's go back. Kimon, you have a follow-up? All right. Minister, I have one then in from another news entity asking if the OEC has been aware, has been made aware that students' SBA may be being destroyed at a particular high school in the parish of Clarendon. If you don't, if you do, what are the investigations showing? If not, then will you investigate? Yes, go ahead.
No, the OEC is not aware. We have received no such report. But if and when we get that report, we will act immediately to investigate and to find out what. That's a strange one. We've never heard of students' SBAs being destroyed. So that's a little crazy. But like I said, we have not gotten the report. And as soon as we do, we'll treat with the matter expeditiously.
Thank you so much for that, sir.
Sure.
All right. Final question from the floor, then we'll have Minister Malahoo Ford.
Minister, what's the status of the appointment of a principal at JC, and is the ministry paying the salary of the current acting principal?
I'll ask our permanent secretary to answer that. Thanks.
So the status is the principal is still acting as principal of the institution. You are aware through the media releases that the school did advertise and they did their interviews and they have submitted a recommendation for the Teacher Services Commission to deliberate on and to advance such to the Minister for ratification. So we are still in that process. The school also through the direction of our minister, there was an audit that was done on the institution, inspired or influenced by some reports that came into the ministry. We are also treating with that with the board. We have done the audit by the ministry's audit team. We have provided to the institution the findings, and per usual, the school is supposed to respond to the audit queries, submit that to us, and then we will work with the institution for the matters that have come up as concerns to be addressed. I must say publicly that we have not seen from the report any matter that we have not seen in other schools, and we have worked with the schools to respond to those issues. So we are working through those, and once those are settled, as we have communicated to the board, then the minister will give her instruction on the matter. As it is now, like all other cases, once somebody is acting, it is the Ministry of Education that covers the compensation for acting principals, whether they are interim, provisional, temporary, permanent. We cover the cost of compensation for school personnel.
All right, thank you, PS, Minister.
All right, thank you very much. And now I crave your indulgence. We're at 9:58 and we're scheduled to finish at 10, but we had a lot of very important things to go through. And very, very importantly, we have Minister Malahoo Fort now coming to tell us about a very historic bill that was passed yesterday.
Thank you, Minister Dixon. Good morning, my fellow Jamaicans and friends of Jamaica at home and abroad. I come to bring good news. And this is my third week at the post-cabinet press briefing, each week bringing you good news. Yesterday, the House of Representatives passed a bill entitled An Act to Amend Section 61 of the Constitution of Jamaica to provide for new words of enactment. Now, words of enactment are technical in nature. They indicate the source of authority for the making of an enactment. And they are important to signify the supreme authority of the Parliament of Jamaica in legislative matters. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the road to republic. We're taking the steps, step by step, in sequence. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It is the right journey in the right direction we are on. It doesn't matter how often we stumble. It doesn't matter how rocky the road is. We are on the journey and we are making progress. It is interesting that what took place in the Parliament yesterday is actually implementation of a recommendation that was made 31 years ago by the Constitution Commission in its 1993 report. So when Queen Elizabeth died, the issue of the words of enactment in the Constitution became a live issue. And different views contended on how we should approach this matter. The Parliament took a decision, but I maintain that the better view is that while you can use the Interpretation Act, and in this case, it's the Interpretation Act of 1889 that applies to the interpretation of the Constitution of Jamaica. While you can use it to find the meaning of words in the Constitution, you cannot use it to amend the literal text of the Constitution. So our Constitution specifies the Queen, and it specifies the Queen Most Excellent Majesty. The Interpretation Act tells us that any reference to the sovereign is a reference to the sovereign for the time being, but that did not mean that we could change the actual words in the Constitution. But more importantly, what we have done and what we are in the process of completing is to have every act of Parliament commencing with the words, where appropriate, be it enacted by the Parliament of Jamaica by and with the advice and consent of the Senate and the House of Representatives. And for the matter that will have to have the approval of the people, the words will be by the Parliament and people of Jamaica by and with the advice and consent of the Senate and the House of Representatives. This is the physical copy of the bill. It is available online, and the Memorandum of Objects and Reason tells you that this bill constitutes the first legislative step in a proposed series of amendments intended to give effect to a constitution enacted by the Parliament of Jamaica and approved by the people of Jamaica. Even if you do not understand what it means technically, it is something to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. I'm open to taking any question that you may have.
Thank you, Minister. Naomi?
Indeed, absolutely historic. And so, Minister, yes, there are some questions.
Yes.
I believe Kimon had a few questions, and Mahiri as well. Let's get back to Kimon. Not for Minister Malahoo Fort. Oh, continue with Minister Williams as well, Mahiri. All right, so let's continue with Minister Williams, and then we come to you, Minister Fort.
I'm delighted that there are no questions.
I think they're just all very happy. I see it on their faces. They're so happy
The
that
matter is non-controversial. It's a long overdue step. And this Holness administration is serious about constitutional reform for the people of Jamaica. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. And Minister?
Since Minister Morris Dixon is at the podium, is Cabinet comfortable with the tax administration Jamaica spending $1 billion to retrofit a building that it does not own?
I don't have all of the, I know it's a good question that you're asking, and I just saw the reports last night too, and I have been in contact with the Minister of Finance and the TAJ team. They have noted that they will be putting out a briefing, a press release that will give more details in terms of the details of that procurement activity. I do not have the details as yet. When I do get them, I will be able to answer any questions, and the TAJ team is also ready to answer questions. So as I get more information, I'll be able to give you more answers in relation to the TAJ matter. And obviously it's a procurement issue, and I need to be fully briefed on it by TAJ before I can really opine on it.
Minister Williams, is there any policy for graduation fees this cycle? And the second question is, what's the status of Dr. Grace McLean in the Education Ministry?
I guess by asking about graduation, you're talking about the fees, yes. Right? There's no written policy currently as to what the fees should be. As you can hear, we're trying to use moral suasion of our many vendors and other persons who provide these graduation services to be mindful of the pockets of our parents, considering that everyone wants to walk across the stage for graduation. We don't want it to be a significant financial burden. So it's more moral suasion right now. And could I say, with regards to the question you had asked earlier about the parent, there's so many cases that come to me. Sorry, I was not remembering that particular one, but as you heard the PS said, we did speak with the parent and offered solutions. So it is disconcerting, it is worrying right now to know that after accepting the solutions that we proffered that that child is still out of school, and we will be in touch with the parent to find out exactly why. With regards to the status of the former permanent secretary acting, the most that I can say now is that the matter still remains in the investigative realm. We simply have to wait until those processes have been completed.
Thank you, Minister. And our final questioner this morning, Mahiri.
Morning, Minister. Amid the talks going on right now regarding corporal punishment and whether or not it would be banned in the home, we know it's something that has been banned in the schools. Could you speak on the effectiveness of that ban as it regards the education sector since it's been implemented?
All right. Thank you for that question. Just want to remind us of some dates. If we go back to 2004, the Child Care and Protection Act banned corporal punishment in residential child care facilities. In 2005, the Early Childhood Act banned corporal punishment in early childhood institutions, and in 2008, the Ministry of Education's directive banned corporal punishment in all our schools. P.S., would you say we have, over those years, we have seen a significant decline in the traditional use of corporal punishment in favor of the child, but I want to say in favor of or teachers, school administrators being enabled with the skills to engage our students in conversation, reasoning about whatever the situation is. You've seen over the years that we have been using more guidance counselors for our students. And so within our schools, while we don't necessarily have hard numbers to present today, but we can say, looking back through those dates when those bans were implemented, that the use of corporal punishment has significantly declined in early childhood institutions, residential child care facilities, and in our schools.
All right, Minister, there are no further questions.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Naomi. Thank you very much, Minister Williams and your team for those answers. As we close out, I just want to remind everyone about two upcoming things in terms of June 1. The new minimum wage increase kicks in June 1. And that's very important. So starting next week, minimum wage earners will receive $15,000 per 40-hour work week. The administration really deeply understands the pressures that are facing a lot of our lower and lowest income earners. And this is one way that we're continuing to do what we can in our power to support these individuals. Obviously, we would love it to be more, and that's over time. We do want to have that happen. But in the interim, we're very happy that on June 1, this increase will take effect. Also on June 1, we will see the implementation of the Data Protection Act. I spoke to that last week. It's a very important act. It is guaranteeing privacy for a lot of our Jamaicans and our consumers across the country, and that will be implemented come June 1, especially with high-risk sectors, which include the financial sector, those in the ICT sector and the health sector, and also large data processors. And so those are two very good things coming on June 1. So I thank you all for tuning in this week. We will have another very exciting post-cabinet press briefing very soon. I want to thank all the ministers who came this morning. Minister Williams, thank you very much. Minister Samuda on water, and Minister Malahoo Fort on that historic bill that was signed, that was approved in Parliament yesterday. Thank you all and have a wonderful week.
The journey of a child entangled in the justice system can be daunting, but within Jamaica's justice landscape, there's a beacon of hope, a network of child-focused services dedicated to guiding young individuals toward a brighter future. From diversion programs to victim support initiatives, these services aim to provide holistic care, rehabilitation, and empowerment for Jamaica's youth. These programs are offered through several branches of the Ministry of Justice.
Child diversion, as the name implies, is a way of diverting children from the formal justice system into other options or other services that can provide rehabilitation and reintegration. The program focuses on children between the ages of 12 and 17 who come into conflicts with the formal justice system. What this means is the child is suspected of an offense, they're accused of an offense, or they're charged with an offense. Once this takes place, a child can be referred by the police or the court to the child diversion offices across the island, so that if they make a mistake or they make a bad decision, they won't be criminalized and they won't have to live with that decision for the rest of their lives, as long as they abide by the program and they complete the program.
Support is also offered to persons who have been harmed by a crime through the Victim Services branch within the Ministry's Social Service Division. This branch is charged with the responsibility to provide counseling, emotional support, and therapy to persons who are victims of crime. They provide a service that is confidential, professional, and neutral.
The language of children is play, and we have found, especially with the very younger clients, that in utilizing play therapy mechanisms, it is very effective in terms of reaching them, in terms of getting them to open up to us and to be able to tell their story, and for us to be able to work through the traumatic symptoms with them. One of our flagship programs is that we provide court support for individuals. We use behavior modification interventions, we use cultural restructuring mechanisms to be able to help the child to understand what is happening to them. One such program is our cultural resocialization program. Another intervention that we utilize is our Overcomers in Action program. And this one is geared specifically towards females who have been sexually abused. It's a group therapy intervention that runs for 6 sessions, and it culminates in a graduation ceremony.
The Restorative Justice Branch provides support to both the victims and perpetrators of crime, prioritizing accountability and healing over mere punishment. It aims to repair relationships, reintegrate offenders into communities, and foster healing for victims and communities. The branch also ensures the lasting impact of conflict resolution skills learned through its training programs in educational institutions. Through a memorandum of understanding between the Ministries of Justice and Education and Youth, significant stride is being made. Since 2022, over 12,000 participants from schools nationwide have had the opportunity to engage in 2-day training workshops focused on restorative justice.
Restorative practices is focused on healing. What it does, it is an investment into relationships among these critical players within the institutions. Additionally, restorative practices hold each player accountable, and this is done by engaging them in collaborative conversations that allows them to explore their actions their decisions and their behaviors to recognize the impact that it would have had on the persons around them. And so from these conversations, we see a mounting personal development and change among the key players. These are very important if we are trying to rewrite the narrative of how we resolve conflicts and disputes.
Through the Social Justice Division of the Ministry of Justice, we are committed to
healing and justice for all children,
creating a circle of care,
delivering justice that heals, and
together we are taking justice to the people of Jamaica.
In a landscape often shadowed by challenges, Jamaica's child-focused services stand as pillars of hope, offering a lifeline to young individuals in need. Through comprehensive care, empowerment, and community support, these initiatives are not just shaping individual lives, but laying the foundation for a more inclusive, compassionate, and safe society for all.